Time to suit up, all you mentees, and talk about 3 brand new Omnis coming out in May, June, and July of 2025. So let's go ahead and get started. This video is sponsored by Marvel Comics, so thank you so much to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advance notice of these 3 Omnis. So before I go any further, please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Stay away from the comments if you want to be surprised. And I am going to be talking about, there is a reason why I wore this tie. Sometimes I give hints. Yeah, this time around I had to, because I'm talking about 3 different X-Men related Omnis. Some of these are a continuation of an ongoing series, and some of them are what I like to call gap fillers, because we've been waiting a long time for this. And then one bringing a close to a particular series. So let's go ahead and talk about the one coming out in May. I'm not going to jump around. I'm going to go May, June, July. May of 2025. It is another book that continues a series. It's another, I can't believe we're getting a volume 6 of this already. So it joins the ranks of the Fantastic Four and the ranks of Amazing Spider-Man, because coming in May is Wolverine Omnibus Volume 6. Let's take a look at our standard edition cover. The standard edition cover is supplied by Leno Francis Yu, and it is the cover to the Operation Zero Tolerance, which will play a part in this collection. So let's talk about what's collected in here. Collected in here is Wolverine 102 to 118, the -1 issue, the half issue 102.5, Wolverine Annuals 96 and 97. Now those are the years, not Wolverine 96. Don't think that you missed out on any of the annuals. And Venom Tooth and Claw miniseries 1 through 3, Maverick one-shot, Logan Shadow Society #1, Kitty Pryde Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. 1 through 3, Wolverine Doombringer #1, Before the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm and Logan 1 through 3, Wolverine Days of Future Past 1 through 3, and I'll talk more about that here in a little bit, Wolverine Encyclopedia 1 and 2, and then material from Marvel Shadows and Light #1. So this is the era that takes place post-Onslaught and takes us into Operation Zero Tolerance. There are a lot of one-shots in here that were big, 64 pages. And also, we have Kitty Pryde. That's so awesome that that's collected in here. But before I talk a little bit about the stories in here, let's take a look at the direct market cover. And this direct market cover is supplied by Anthony Wynn. And it features, of course, the character of Logan from his many different eras. Now, I mentioned a little bit about the stories, and I know we have 2 other Omnis to talk about, so I'm just going to be quick. This does collect the Wolverine Days of Future Past for the people that were wondering if that could be added to the Extinction Agenda Days of Future Present Omnibus. This is where you're going to find it, and it fits perfectly in the reading order. It is a retro series that goes back into what Wolverine was doing in Days of Future Past. I mentioned that this was post-Onslaught, so it is after the transformation of Logan. You have the fight here with Venom. You do have Elektra coming in and kind of helping him get his way back and bringing back the edginess that was Wolverine. You have some of the flashback issues that go back into his past, but don't go too deep if that makes any sense, because they don't want to reveal too much during this time. And then of course you have Yukio and Amiko coming back, and I just can't believe we have a volume 6 of Wolverine already. It beat Uncanny X-Men, but yeah, that's crazy. And I'm glad that they have the miniseries in here before the Fantastic Four. So although people may be looking like, well, that's only 16 issues, there's a lot of stories in here. And I'm hoping one day that Maverick, that series with Jim Chung on art, gets collected fully. Just seeing that Maverick in oversized format in this collection just gives me hope one day we'll get that collected. Now let's talk about the Omnibus coming out in June, because I mentioned one of these was a gap filler, and this is the one that I consider the gap filler, because if you've been buying X-Men in Omnibus format and in oversized hardcover format since day one, this is one very much like the Road to Onslaught Omnibus Volume 1 that definitely plugs those holes in that shelf. Like, it is not Volume 2 of Road to Onslaught, but this does give us something post-Onslaught. So coming out in June it is my pleasure to get to announce X-Men Onslaught Aftermath Omnibus. That's right, we are going past the Onslaught era and going into Operation Zero Tolerance and all those issues that will be coming later. But first, let's look at our standard edition cover. And our standard edition cover is supplied by Adam Kubert, who was one of the artists during this particular time. So let's take a look at the content of the book. Collected in here is Uncanny X-Men 338 to 350, the -1 issue, Uncanny X-Men Annuals 96 and 97, X-Men 58 through 64, and that's the adjectiveless series, the -1 issue, X-Men Annual 97, X-Men Unlimited 12 through 15, I'm loving that they're still putting those in there, the Magneto miniseries 1 through 4, XSE 1 through 4, and that is the story of Bishop and his folk, X-Factor 130, Juggernaut number 1, Beast 1 through 3, Psylocke and Archangel Crimson Dawn 1 through 4, Gambit 1 through 4, and then material from Marvel Holiday Special number 1 and the Marvel Valentine Special number 1. Now, this does have the story in here, the Trial of Gambit, that comes to a close in issue 350. So, let's take a look at our direct market cover. And our direct market cover is supplied by Joe Madureira, who was the artist at the time on Uncanny X-Men, and of course drew issue 350. So in here you are going to find the work not just of Joe Madureira, but also Adam Kubert, like I mentioned, David Perrin, John Francis Moore, Terry Cavana, Howard Mackey, Jorge Gonzalez, Scott Lobdell, George Perez, actually doing some stuff in here, Steve Epting, Andy Kubert, and Duncan Rillo, just to name a few of the artists that worked on this particular book. Now, this has been collected before in a trade paperback. It was actually called the Onslaught Aftermath, and there's also X-Men The Trial of Gambit. But there are things that haven't been collected before. We've got the Juggernaut one-shot, the Beast miniseries, Psylocke and Archangel Crimson Dawn 1 through 4, and then the XSE series has been collected in this particular omnibus. So they are not missing anything. This is actually mapped different than those two trade paperbacks that I mentioned. As a matter of fact, I think the Trial of Gambit has been out of print for a while. So there is another one. We still don't have a Road to Onslaught Omnibus Volume 2, but I'm sure that will come. But this is another one that fills that gap. And yeah, now we need more of the stuff post Operation Zero Tolerance. And of course, some reprints of some of those out-of-print, oversized hardcovers. But before we go and even talk about those, we're jumping way ahead. We are going to be talking about the books in July. So I mentioned that one of these was closing a particular series up. So it is my absolute pleasure to get to announce another Peter David book. And it's an X-Men related title. So of course I'm talking about X-Factor by Peter David Omnibus Volume 4. Ending out that series. And let's take a look at our standard edition cover. The standard edition cover is supplied by David Yardin, who was one of the artists on the book, and this is the return of the classic team. I love that Havoc and Polaris are back with X-Factor. So what is collected in here? Collected in here is X-Factor 233 to 262, all new X-Factor 1 through 20, X-Men Legends 5 through 6. So I'm so glad they added the X-Men Legends series in here. And it does collect all of the X-Factor issues that wraps up X-Factor, and then the series All New X-Factor that kickstarted in 2014. All 20 issues are collected in here. Now, let's look at our direct market cover. And the direct market cover is supplied by Todd Knock and comes from that Legends storyline. So in here, you're going to find, of course, the work of Peter David and David Yardin, like I mentioned, Leonard Kirk doing some of the stuff in here, Neil Edwards. And by the time you get to the all-new X-Factor, which changes the storyline a bit and also adds a new cast, including Gambit joining the team, and a character named Danger. But you are going to find the work in here of Giuseppe Camuncoli and Lee Lufridge and Jared Fletcher, just to name a few of the creators that were working with Peter David on the book. I did mention Todd Knock, but that will wrap up X-Factor by Peter David. And actually, that wraps up X-Factor until we get into the Age of Krakoa. But those are your three announcements coming out in May, June, and July, and all X-Men related. For the people that are wondering, where are the X-Men? What's going on? We got Cosmic X-Men, but we don't have X-Men. Well, now you got some X-Men, including one that is a huge gap filler for a lot of us that have been buying these books since day one. So in the comments down below, let me know the covers you're going to pick up, which books you're interested in, and what other X-Men related omnis you want to see. So that is it, everybody. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. And a big thank you again to Marvel and David Gabriel for sending us advance notice of these 3 books. Stay healthy and safe out there. Make mine X-Men.